All right, welcome to part two of the Vine Tree series. I apologize for the delay in getting this video uploaded. Um, if you haven't seen part one yet, or it's been a while, I would recommend watching that first because it's a prelude to what will be discussed in this video. So I'm going to link it at the top of the screen for you all. And now I'm going to continue the discussion where we left it at the end of part one. So I was faced with a decision as to whether I should charge for the additional work or just take care of it at no extra cost. And again, I just want to emphasize real quick that everything that I'm talking about right now was explained in part one. So I would recommend checking that out first if you haven't. But anyways, ultimately, I decided to just take care of it and not bill for the extra time. And there's a few different factors that I considered before making this decision. For one, it was kind of a misunderstanding on both of our parts. But more importantly, I valued the relationship with the client and their business more than I valued the few $100s extra that I might get if I was to charge for what they wanted done. And I wanted to be able to keep things on good terms. By doing that, not only is the client happy, but they may call me back again at a later time if they need more work done, and or refer me out to anyone they know looking for work. It's a lot less stressful to just keep it on good terms, right? Now let's consider the opposite scenario. The only way you'll do the work is if the client pays you for the additional time. You're adamant that, if they want it done, you'll be happy to do it, but they have to pay for the time. They may have you do it or they may not. But more importantly, if the client is upset and things are not left on good terms, then you have to consider how that could potentially impact your business down the road. They may not call you back if they ever need more work done or refer you out to people they know who are looking for work. And while this may kind of be just a lost opportunity, so to speak, in other words, that in itself is not necessarily a huge deal when you have a bunch of other clients that you're working for. It's kind of just like an unfortunate situation where you kind of lost a client, so to speak. However, it could also have an impact on your reputation, the reputation you worked so hard to build, if they were to start saying negative things about your business. So, as I said, you have to really consider, is potentially getting into a conflict with the client worth whatever the payoff might be? And in this case, for me, it wasn't. We're talking about an additional 1 to 3 hours worth of work. But I will say that this is a highly personalized decision based off, I guess, what you think is right and also your business. I do run a smaller operation that primarily focuses more on pruning type work as opposed to, banging out large removals every single day. So for me, these smaller jobs, although what I will say is the initial estimate that I had written for this client was somewhere around $2,000. So it wasn't exactly a small job. But when I say small job, I mean, more trimming type maintenance type work as opposed to huge removals. But these kind of jobs and clients are my base, so to speak. These are the kind of jobs that I really enjoy and that I want to take on. So that's why it was even more important for me that I preserve the reputation and the relationship. However, I also think that you have to know when to kind of draw a line in the sand and not let yourself be taken advantage of. For instance, if the client is asking you to do something that wasn't included in the initial estimate and it's going to take you a full day's worth of work, not to mention accumulate costs on your end, and it isn't something that is a result of a misunderstanding or whatever on your part. In other words, you did everything right. You wrote the estimate very clearly, and maybe they just didn't read it or they just want what they want. So, if you've done everything right and they're just trying to get you to do more work for free, there has to be that line that you draw between, wanting to help somebody out and wanting to keep the peace, but also not letting yourself get taken advantage of. You know, if what they're asking you to do is going to add a whole day's worth of work, especially if you're going to have other crew members there, maybe additional dump fees, that could potentially add up the costs on your end. So that's where you have to consider, well, can you justify doing it for free simply to try to keep the peace, or do you have to explain that you'd be happy to do it, but there would be additional costs? Now that's in the case of, you did everything right, you understood what the client wanted, and you detailed it in the written estimate, so you can always revert back to that written document. When you get into these kind of conversations with the client, you can say, well, this is the estimate, and this is what you agreed to. Now, if it's the case of maybe you misunderstood or it was a mistake on your part, then personally, the way I operate is I think you need to own it and you need to do what you got to do to fix it, even if that means working a day for free. The thing about being in business is you interact with all different types of people. Some people might be very straightforward, some people may be very friendly, and most people may be, easy to deal with, and, you cover all your bases with the estimate, and there's an agreement, and you do what's on that estimate, and they're happy. But then you have people who, maybe they agree to something, but they don't actually read what they're agreeing to, and then that's where the conflicts arise. But if it was something that you misunderstood, or maybe you messed up somehow, well then, at least my opinion is you need to own it, and you need to do what you got to do to resolve it. But if you did everything right, then it comes down to a personal decision. Obviously, you want to make the client happy. Obviously, you want to leave on good terms. You don't want to leave with the client being upset. However, you also can't be taken advantage of. So in terms of where do you draw that line, that's something that as a business owner, you have to figure out for yourself. I have my line. I know what I may do, or actually I may not know what I might do until I'm in a situation, right? And that may be true for others as well. But what may be right for one person and one business owner may not necessarily be right for another.